Here's the truth. Most youth pastors burn or bail out within the first 2 years of ministry, but it's not because they fall out of love with Jesus or working with students. It's because they build the wrong things first. In this episode, we're going to give you practical advice on how you can make sure that you don't waste the first few months in youth ministry and build something that lasts.
Or I mean, like in the pastoral world, they're saying like the leading cause of church splits are pastors in their 30s. And
I think that's pretty funny.
Relative to this,
yeah.
because they come in and they just change everything, and then like they don't take their congregation along with them.
Yeah,
like in maybe a vision
that's a great way to say it.
Yeah, and so I would say like don't just come in, blow everything up, and be like we're starting from now. Some of you guys are inheriting a ministry that's already been blown up. Like there's nothing happening. And it's like your relaunch. Like I've been a part of a relaunch before where there was like, I mean, it was coming out of COVID. Like we didn't have like really anything happening. So I was like, okay, step number one, meeting again. Like
my favorite story is early youth ministry, Keith. I've never forgotten it, where you said sometimes I would plan a whole youth group and then stare out the window to see if anybody would show up.
No one even came. So there's not a lot of blowing up you need to do in that case, where there's nothing started yet. And that actually, that was like fun. Like
that was my start in youth ministry. Is like we had 8 to 10 kids, and it was pretty much like, you'll meet with us consistently. Like, yeah, this is awesome. And it was like, oh, this is easy.
Well, and so
Keith, pop quiz. How long have you been in youth ministry?
Oh goodness. I mean, it's kind of hard to answer because I was doing youth ministry as a teenager. Does that count? Like,
let's go formal youth ministry.
Okay, so then how do you define the form? Like, you have to get paid?
No, you just have to have an official title.
Okay, official title. So is a volunteer a title?
No.
Okay, so then what's the title that would make it official?
You're on staff with the church.
So then you have to get paid?
Paid or non-paid. Free stuff. I don't know. Just answer the question. You're making it too difficult.
All right, so I was the director of a student ministries part-time in college in like 2004.
So how old were you then?
So I was probably like 21, 20.
Okay. If you could go back in time, what's something?
Yeah, I was 20. Yeah.
What's something that might surprise us or you like cringe at when you think of 20-year-old like youth director Keith
Seymour? I mean, one, I really did. I mean, I loved youth ministry. I loved like, caring for students and sharing the gospel with them, like engaging with, I mean, so like none of that's really changed. Like, I mean, you still have to have like a love for like the people that you serve. So I think I would not cringe at anything that I did back then as far as that goes. But the like shock value of events and like, like we used to do gross games and like that kind of stuff. I'm like, ugh. Yeah, that was a weird time in youth ministry.
That was a very weird.
It wasn't uncommon, like for someone to drink a Coke out of a sock, or like lick
somebody else's sock,
like lick peanut butter off of someone's armpits. Like that was actually a thing. Like it was.
Maybe the pandemic was a good way, and something.
It wasn't even the pandemic. Like I think that was.
No, I mean like the pandemic that killed all those things. Even
I'm saying it was before. Oh yeah, because it was the gross germ stuff. Yeah, no, but I mean, I think it died a slow death. Before the pandemic. And if you're watching this in your youth ministry and you still do gross germs. We're sorry, but it's time. It's time to move on. Yeah.
Yeah. The reason I ask is because I think when we all reflect back on our first couple months in youth ministry, we're all like, I had no idea what I was doing. Yeah. And the more, you go in youth ministry, the more you realize I have no idea what I'm doing.
Okay. So let me preface this too. Like, it's not that I could say, I didn't know a lot about what I was doing. However, I think a lot of people that don't know what they're doing, they might have they might not have expected to be in youth ministry.
Yeah.
Like maybe like someone left and then they took over a position, or like they're a parent now that's like in charge of the youth ministry and they're like, what? So like I was preparing to be in youth ministry, like because I loved it so much, ministering to my friends as a teenager and was studying youth ministry in college. So it wasn't like I was clueless. But there was a lot of things that like I would totally do different back then than I do now.
And we know that like the decisions you make, we were just talking about kids going off to college, right? Like the decisions you make in the first 2 weeks in college normally reflect like the next 4 years. And I think often it's true in like youth ministry, like those early decisions kind of set you up and your students on what they're going to expect for many of them, like 7 years, And so maybe you're listening to this and you stumbled on this podcast because you were thrust into the youth director role and we need somebody and you're somebody. And I'm reminded of the words of Gladys Allwards. I'm sure that I was not God's first choice, but his first choice must have been a man, a strong man. But I was faithful and obedient.
It's like he was disobedient or like just didn't answer the call, and I was just willing. That's why God used it.
And so maybe that's you, or maybe you just came out of college and you're like, hey, like I really want to do this well, and even I've gone to school for ministry, but like let's get some practical tips of how to do that. Or maybe you're even like not brand new, but you're like, I need to refresh, like I need to restart like what I'm doing, like I want more and things like that. And so we're gonna give you 5 practical tools, and that's something that we try and pride ourselves on. We even just got a message from somebody in our community who's like, I love how practical the podcast is. So that's something we try and take pride in is not just ministry philosophy, but ministry strategy, which we'll talk about at the end of this podcast. So the number one thing, blueprint for a new youth pastor is, again, no surprise, start with prayer. And we hear that a lot, right? It's like, start with prayer. Why do we say that every time? Because that's what we see what Jesus did. Yeah. That's what we see prescribed to us in Scripture.
Well, and not just like, because people see like, okay, Jesus, modeled prayer, like the Lord's Prayer, like he, told us to pray. But you kind of see a directive tie into Jesus being alone with the Father.
Yeah.
So for instance, Mark 2, like we're teaching through the book of Mark right now, and I think it's beginning of Mark 2 where Jesus is, he has this crazy busy ministry day.
Yeah.
Like his first kind of public day of ministry. And then the next morning he gets up early, goes off into a solitude place and prays. And so we're like, well, he's modeling prayer, for his. It's like, no, they couldn't even find him. Like, they didn't even know where he went.
It was.
So they finally found him. And they're like, oh, it's 135. Okay, so
that's what I thought. We just thought on that. I was like, I think it's 135.
Yeah. So end of chapter 1, right before we get into 2, and so what that shows us, like when we see his response after that, when they finally found him, he's like, we must go to this place to share the gospel next. Like, and then he went into to Galilee and share the gospel. So it seemed like there was a next step directive to Jesus, tied to Jesus getting alone with the Father.
Yeah, and I think the reason why this is so important for a new youth pastor, of course, prayer is important for all of us, but when you first take a position, you're so overwhelmed with everything you have to do, and it's so easy for you to put prayer on the back burner. To be like, well, I need to do all these things. You're overwhelmed. You're trying to figure things out, and so oftentimes, what should be first is the first to go, and we kind of just become like, well, I know I need to do this, and I need to do this, and we need this policy, and we need this, and I need to write the lessons, and I need to come up with the games, and I need to purchase this, and you start to do all these things, and then all of a sudden you lose out the fact that like, no, my primary role is the spiritual shepherding of these students.
Yeah.
And so a lot of youth pastors and youth ministries turn to prayer when things fall apart. And the reality is that no, we want to start and build the ministry on prayer. As Oswald Chambers says, prayer does not fit us for the greater work. Prayer is the greater work. And so I would just say, like, look, hey, prayer is going to be a critical part not only of our my ministry, but also our programs. Like, we're going to pray together, and we'll talk more about that in step number 5, where we'll walk through the strategy you can actually implement. But a couple practical tips that we've both engaged in or used and is, number 1, print out your roster and pray through it on a regular basis. So whether if you're taking over youth ministry with 200 kids, like, you might not be able to pray for all of them by day or by name every day, right? Like, but spread that out. Make sure that somebody is praying over them every day. You personally take some time, pray over a few each day.
Or just cover certain letters of the alphabet. Like,
and or if you have a smaller group, like, maybe you can pray for them by name every day. And so just make sure that's a practical way. It's like, because that practically, it's like, well, do we have a roster? It's like, no. It's like, okay, well, even something as simple as that, it's like, well, we need check-in to have a roster so we know who to pray for, and we need to know who God has entrusted us with. And something else we're passionate about is praying for our local schools. There's a website called everyschool.com if you want to claim your school to pray over them or your local schools. And so we created flip cards with the local school's mascot and logo, and we gave them out to all of our youth leaders, and we say, hey, we want you to pray through these every single week. And that way we know that every school in our area, even the private schools, and we have a flashcard for the homeschool students as well. It's like we're praying over them. So when we say start with prayer, that sounds like generic, but some practical steps is actually to pray over them by name with the roster and maybe create those flip cards.
Well, and also, I mean, we don't want to just stop with just praying for the ministry, praying for them specifically, but realizing like prayer is ministry, like to us too, like that we want to become more like Jesus. We want to be holy. We want to spend time in prayer for our own holiness. And it's easy to have like the Mary Martha, aspect where it's like Martha was busy doing things for Jesus and never just sat at the feet of Jesus like Mary was. And Mary, I mean, Jesus said, like, Mary has chosen the good portion. Like, she's chosen the better thing than to do things for Jesus or to, it's like, we wouldn't say, like, just spend all your time just sitting at the feet of Jesus. Like never, it's like, no, we have practical things that we do in ministry as well. But I love this quote from Robert Murray McCheyne. He said, where'd it go? I just lost it. Oh, holiness is what my people need the most. It's like my personal holiness is what my people need the most. And so when it comes to that idea of like, okay, yes, we need to spend time in prayer, like, but yeah, not just like praying for others, but like we need to commune with the word. Like we need to linger in the presence of the Lord so that we can be the spiritual leader that people need. That we're leading.
Absolutely. One thing you realize quickly in youth ministry is that every great youth group is equipped with great volunteers. And that's why we here at Beyond the Youth Room wrote a youth leader handbook that is completely customizable and includes everything your leaders need. It walks through our wins, our expectations, resources, how we partner with parents. All of those things are addressed clearly, and this is a handbook that is actually in practice in Keith's ministry right now, and so we know that it's not just theoretical, it's also practical and tested and true. And so if you're a youth leader, a new youth leader, or just a youth leader looking to kind of revamp or revisit your youth ministry and some of the things you guys are doing, we would love for you to get your hands on that youth leader handbook, and guess what? It is completely free. We give it away. We have nothing to sell you. And so if you want to check out that youth leader handbook, make it your own. Again, add your logo, please. You're not plagiarizing. We write this to give it away. You can go ahead and check out that link in the description below. That'll take you to our Youth Ministry Mastermind, which is our free community for youth pastors and youth leaders, filled with free resources, live trainings, and a community of like-minded youth pastors and leaders. So go ahead, join that for free, and in there you'll find the Youth Leaders Handbook as well as so many other free resources at your disposal. So go ahead, check out that link in the description, join today, and we are excited to see you. Absolutely. So if you're just getting started, make sure that you have that time, schedule that time, protect that time. I will say from personal experience, it is easy to get out of rhythm in that time. There definitely been times where I look back and I was like, man, like I was on fire for that. And then there's been other times like maybe this morning where, your 1-year-old wakes up at 5:30 and you're like, this is the time I get to just spend. So give yourself grace too. But protect that time as best you can and start in prayer. And then study the culture. So number 1, start in prayer. Number 2, study the culture. A lot of youth pastors make a mistake where they come in and they're like, I need to change so much. And the reality is that what I had to learn the hard way is people are there because they like what's going on. Nobody's like, if people hate it, they're not going to stick around. So when you come in and you see what's going on, like the reason those people are there is because they like what's going on 99% of the time.
I don't know. You might have some kids that are forced to come.
You do.
And they hate it.
They do. But my point is like overall, and if kids are forced to come, you figure that out pretty quickly based on their reactions. But the truth is like study the culture. That doesn't mean that like you have to keep doing everything. But if you just come and be like, I'm changing everything day one, all of a sudden you're going to have nobody to help you change it because everybody's going to be like, what are you doing? Like, you might have some people jump on board. And at some point, that's like kind of boiling that frog where like you have to slowly turn it up. And then at a certain point, you need to know and it's like, okay, we got to flip that switch and go. But really studying the culture, and every culture is different. So when you come in, be a student of culture and just observe, like take some time, take some things to actually like figure out, okay, what do we need to do? And Ed Stetzer, he says, you can't speak meaningfully to a culture you don't understand. Yeah. And
I think this is crucial too. There's like it's kind of a sad joke actually, but it's probably not even funny at all. But they say like in the church planting world, there's like in the pastoral world, they're saying like the leading cause of church splits are pastors in their 30s, and I think that's pretty funny. It's relative to this because they come in and they just change everything, and then like they don't take their congregation along with them. Yeah, like in maybe a vision
that's a great way to say it.
Yeah, and so I would say like don't just come in, blow everything up, and be like, we're starting from now. Some of you guys are inheriting a ministry that's already been blown up. Like there's nothing happening, and it's like your relaunch. Like I've been a part of a relaunch before where there was like, it was coming out of COVID. Like we didn't have like really anything happening. So I was like, okay, step number 1, meeting again. Like
my favorite story is early youth ministry, Keith. I've never forgotten it, where he said sometimes I would plan a whole youth group and then stare out the window to see if anybody would show up.
No one even came. So there's not a lot of blowing up you need to do in that case, where there's nothing started yet. And that actually, that was like fun. Like
that was my start in youth ministry. Is like we had 8 to 10 kids, and it was pretty much like, you'll meet with us consistently. Like, this is awesome. And it was like, oh, this is easy.
Well, and so, so some churches that we're walking into or like that we've been part of, like it's so easy to win because there's not a lot of things happening. Like, and so with that, like, we're not talking about like, just, I mean, completely coming in. We're what we're warning against is completely coming in and destroying things that might actually be good and part of the
Yes.
culture just for the sake of changing things. Cause like, no, this is my new strategy or whatever. And so, yeah, you can quickly see that like not everybody's on board if you move too quickly.
Yeah, I've heard it said there's two kinds of people. One who comes across a fence in a field and takes it down, and the other who comes across a fence in a field and says, I wonder why they put it here in the first place. And we want to be that second person of like, is there a purpose
Yeah.
behind this?
Yeah.
And so some practical tips is meet with your leaders and, your volunteers. If they're there in place before you come on board, hear their testimonies, hear their hearts, see what's going on. You might see some red flags, but you might also be like, wow, this is somebody who I could really lean on, who already has a connection, a relationship. So make it a point to meet with them. And then have students take a spiritual assessment to see where they are. Of course, we recommend the four-chair discipleship survey by Dan Spader and Like Jesus Ministries. You can check that out. We've talked about that before. But we're actually talking to some students who are leading an on-campus ministry right now. And one of the students, they were blown away. They met, and the last time I went to one of their meetings last year, they had 6 kids at the end of the year. And this year, she was like, we had 73 kids. Now, one of your students had 74. Mine's at 73. So, well, we'll have to figure that out. But there were.
I have reason to believe that mine is more accurate.
Probably. No, actually, now that I know who told me, I'm betting hard.
I was
on
going to
73.
say, and this guy's very particular about numbers. So I'm thinking, that he's actually more accurate.
But our student was like, what do we do? Like, I know, like we've trained, but now she's like, but we weren't expecting like mid 70s. What do we do?
Yeah.
And I said, well, the first thing is you need to figure out who you have. If you have 73 kids and 40 of them are not church, do not have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, like that looks a whole lot different than if 70 out of 73 say, no, I have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. Like, so the first thing you need to understand before we even go anywhere is we need to know where people are. And that's a huge thing that it's really hard to, sometimes it's like, well, it's just like, they just love being there. And it's like, okay, that's a great thing. Don't get me wrong. You can't manufacture that. But the reality is like, but that doesn't tell you where they are spiritually. And so you want to make sure that we can see where they are. And then one of the things that we've been big proponents of is go with the goers, like that will skill quadrant. Like find the ones who are, high will. They might be low skill, they might be high skill already, but like find the ones who are like they're doing stuff, and then just be like, I'm just going to go with these because oftentimes
resource you to do it.
And oftentimes we come into a ministry and there's this temptation your first couple months to be like, well, what do the kids want to do? And let's just warn against that right now. Like, what would you be your warning to somebody who's like, well, we asked the kids what they wanted to do. Like, why is that maybe not the best? It's not bad, like morally, but why might that not be the best idea?
Invite feedback.
Yeah.
Of course. So I'm not saying like you never ask for feedback from students. But you also got to keep in mind, like if I asked my kids what they wanted for dinner every night, they would say chicken fingers and macaroni and cheese.
Yeah.
Maybe hot dogs and macaroni and cheese.
Yeah.
Like that would not be good for them.
Yes.
I mean, I go back to this quote, Henry Ford. He said, if I asked people what they wanted, they'd still be riding horses. and like legitimately, like he basically founded the assembly line of cars. Like he was one that mass produced cars, and people were like, I just want a faster horse. And it's like, or you can have a car. You don't have to have a horse. But like no one could see past that. So I would say take it with a grain of salt. Like don't base your whole ministry on the opinions of students because they're very limited in perspective. Remember, their minds aren't fully developed, as we've talked about on the other podcast episodes, like where, their frontal cortex is still developing and we can't give the reins completely. Now we can activate and channel a lot of what students are capable of. Like, oh my goodness, like they're capable of so much boldness but I would say if we leave all the decisions and like the direction up to them, we might be missing a lot of things that they need, not just want.
Yeah, and lastly on that point, like some of the ones who are the most vocal about what they want might not even show up.
Yeah.
We've had
Case
that
in point, so like I have like been in that boat where I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna listen to, like I had some great upperclassmen people that when I first came out to Prince William, the location that I serve at, we're a multi-site church. There was some students that they were like, hey, we really miss going to these large events at our Tyson's location. So I'm like, okay, you know what? Like, we're going to make this happen. Like, we're going to even like rent buses to take everybody to these events. Like, so it's easier for them to get there. Like, we're going to have invite cart. We're going to just make sure that like there's just like grease tracks on making this possible. They didn't show up.
Yep.
Like, they didn't even come to the events. And I'm like, that's it. I'm like, I'm not doing that again. Like, just because like, they gave so much feedback and like negativity, even like on what we were doing, and then we had to shift back to this, And so, when they didn't show up, I was like, I just learned a valuable lesson.
There you go.
It cost me a bus rental.
It's just
Yeah.
not as much as it is now, but that's
No,
still,
yeah. Like back then, like you can rent a school bus for like $500 for the night.
it's ridiculous.
I don't know if that's. I mean, I don't even know. That might be. Is that still? That's not a good deal. Is it a good deal?
I've never rented a school bus. I don't even know if they allow you to
Charter
do that
buses
anymore.
are crazy expensive. Like
ridiculous.
we don't do. Yeah, I mean for camps and stuff, that's one of our biggest expense.
It's a different episode because we could talk about that. Like youth pastor rages like the expensive charter buses. All right. So number 1, start in prayer. Number 2, study the culture. Number 3, rely on influence, not authority. So it's funny even by when I asked that question, when did you start in youth ministry? It's like, when is it? It's like, well, when you had authority is really what I was asking. But we don't actually want to rely on authority. We want to rely on influence. And so real change comes through relationships, not programs. So don't think that you can come in, change the programs, and the program is going to be the catalyst for what actually changes. And you have a saying on this. You have a story about this. Like, what is your like favorite story when it comes to programs? You had one thing we know in youth ministry is that students want to share their story of how Jesus has impacted their lives, but most of them just don't know where to start. And that's why we created a testimony worksheet that can be used by students and leaders alike in order to craft their testimony from start to finish so they can succinctly but also fully explain their testimony in 2 minutes or less. We do this by looking at the biblical example that Paul lays out for us in Acts 22, where Paul shares his testimony. And we take simple questions to help students craft their testimony. Questions like, what was your life like before Jesus? When did you meet Jesus? How has your life changed since? And it actually helps them to put pen to paper so they can practice it, rehearse it, so they're always ready to give an answer for the hope that is within them. And so this makes a great activity for your youth group to take a night together and to go through this and practice this with one another. And so if you want to grab that free testimony worksheet, that's in our Youth Ministry Mastermind, the free community for youth pastors and youth leaders hosted by us here at Beyond the Youth Room. And again, that is free to join. Add your logo to that, tweak it however you'd like. But we have those bones there for you, or it's already ready to go too if you just want to hit print and add your youth group's logo at the top. So we'd love for you to take advantage of that. Again, the best way to do that is go to that link in the description below. Join the Youth Ministry Mastermind for free today. It just takes a couple minutes. And when you do, you'll actually get a message from me, Ryan, saying, hey, I'd love to set up a time to talk to hear what God is doing in your youth ministry. And if there's any way we can be of help, we'd love to do that as well. So if you're looking for a great way to help your students share their testimony of what Jesus has done in their life, drop down below to that description, click that link, join the Youth Ministry Mastermind today, and you will find that free resource and many others like it in there for you to use. You had somebody ask you a question one time.
Yeah. So that's, so when I was thinking about so many different things with this. But no, we had, youth leader moved to the area and started at a church and wanted to meet with me and just said like, hey, I mean, like, and I almost laughed. I mean, I think I might've laughed, and he was like, what? Yeah. Cause I did laugh at his question. Not expecting like it to be real. But he's like, hey, what is like the silver bullet, like just magic pill program that will reach all the students in our area? And I just kind of chuckled. I was like, oh my goodness, like he didn't like phase, and I was like, yeah, you got to, I was like, God anoints people, not programs.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to that idea of like, I mean, we've literally tried every program under the sun. So like, let us be the guinea pig for you. Like there's not one program that works.
Nope.
Now we have, I really do like our setup right now that we have. Like, I think it's one of the best, things that where it's like, there's a balance of like burning yourself out because you're doing too much and like providing like opportunities for students to connect and grow and, and be equipped and stuff. I think we've kind of hit that. And I mean, I'll just share what we do. We do a Sunday morning middle school only community, but a lot of our high schoolers are the leaders for that. So like we do table leaders and it's a master teacher. So we teach and then they break up into table discussions. And then we have a Wednesday night, like large group teaching and then small groups based on grade and gender. That seems to like work really well for our context. But if you have a Sunday night, like you guys do, if you have a Wednesday night, if you don't do Sunday mornings, like if you don't do, Sunday nights, so you only do Wednesdays, or you do a Tuesday night middle school, Wednesday night high school, whatever it is, there's not one program that will work all the time.
Yeah.
Like there's always disadvantages. There's pros and cons for each.
Yeah. And that's why John Maxwell says people buy into the leader before they buy into the vision. And so that point of like, when we rely on our influence, not authority, the idea is like, it's not, hey, I'm the director or I'm the pastor and this is the program and this is going to build it. No. The reality is that students are watching you and they want to know that they're cared for by you and they want to get to know you. And so we need to do the groundwork of getting students and volunteers to invest in them before we expect them to buy into what we're trying, what we're trying to do. And so a couple ways that we can do that is go where the students are. Go to recitals, go to games, go to concerts, because if you're just starting out, man, that is a great way for a student to know that you care about them. Once you're actually established, you'll find it actually becomes harder to go to those because your ministry as it grows kind of shifts.
Yeah.
I'm in that point right now. You've told me it's coming, and now it's like I can't get to any
Can't
kids'
get to-
games
yeah.
anymore, and it kills me. But it's such a huge way, and it also kind of goes back to that being a student of the culture. Now you see them in their element. Now you get to sit with their parents. Like that's a great way to have influence, and then also to like hosting a parent night, just inviting parents in if you're new. We talked on the previous episode, Gen Alpha. Go back and check out episode 102, where we said that like partnering with parents is kind of changing a little bit, and so we want to be careful how we say this. Not as in that it's not still the biblical model, but you might have a parent night, and like 50% of your parents are like, why would I come to that? Like, what is this? Like, what is church? Anything like that. But the point is simply, it's like allow parents to have access to you so that you can have influence with parents. So when their student comes home and says, guess what they said tonight? You know, that parent's like, all right, I know them. Like
Yep,
that's
yep.
probably not what they said.
Yeah.
Don't just don't rule with a heavy hand, I guess is the point. Don't be like, well, I'm the one who has the title, and so therefore everybody needs to do what I do. It's like, like you can do that,
Yeah.
but it's not going to get you.
Well, I
very
told you, like, you only pull that card out, like,
Yeah.
very rare occasions where, and you position it as, hey, I have to stand before the Lord about the decisions that we make about our ministry. So I'm gonna go with this because I believe this is what the Lord wants us to do. Not like this is my job, like
Yeah.
this is my title, so therefore respect
Yeah.
me. Like the old, South Park, respect my authority. Does that even ring a bell or no?
No, you weren't raised a
Over your
Christian.
head.
I was. I'm just kidding.
Right? Yeah. Sorry. I think I watched South Park after I became a Christian. I think that came out after I was a Christian.
We can pray for you.
Yeah. Please pray for me.
I'm an adult, and I just see those videos on social media after.
Yeah,
they're
the
posted.
clips and stuff. Yeah.
So
I don't watch it currently.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, I just wanted to clarify that. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we do. Yeah, and influences. And what it was, what I was kind of smiling at. It was a story that I remember, like when I first joined staff at McLean, I had a preaching opportunity, like in one of our large gatherings that we had for students. And so at the time we were doing like big events, like once a month, and I think it was even like the evening that I spoke was like a cool car night where we had like, we have a. Anyways, long story short, there was a lot of students there, and I got an opportunity to preach. And I guess I bombed it, like, because my boss at the time, Dale, who like he totally railed on me. He was just like, "Yeah, you can't preach," and I was like, "Well," like that was the first time anyone's ever told me that. Like it was very humbling. But his recommendation, he's like, well, it's like, but you can get better. Like you can actually, so he's like, pay attention to other people that are good communicators. He's like, and I guess like, cause we were like, as a church known for really excellent preaching. So he's like, it's not that you're like a bad, like, it's like that church living in sin or something. He's like, but he's like, compared to like the level of excellence that we have in preaching here, you're not that great. And I was like, man, I was like really like caught off guard by that. But what he did say though, was a recommendation, and this kind of ties into that John Maxwell quote. He's like, so what you need to work on, he's like, you need to improve as a communicator. So like you can work on getting better. And I don't think I would have gotten that much better if I thought that I was okay.
Yeah.
Like, but the fact that he told me that, I like really worked on communication skills. And, but he's like, but you need to literally talk with and like, get to know everybody in the ministry so that when you're on the stage, they'll listen to you no matter how good you are.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's exactly, I was like, I can do that. Like
Yeah.
I can. And so that's what I did. Like I just built those relationships. Like I got people to where it's like, I'm influential, but I'm not from the stage.
Yeah.
Like I'm the wise guy from the side, not the sage from the stage. And, I'm just full of these, aren't I? Yeah. And so people buy into the leader before they buy into the vision. And I could have gotten up there and cast a big vision or whatever, but like, because, I think people would follow me in the future. Like, as I learned that, is because I was involved in their lives.
Yeah, absolutely. The number 4 blueprint for a new youth pastor is to multiply with leaders. And so you've talked about this before, but leaderships and any working relationship thrives when it has, or any relationship in general thrives when it has accountability, expectations, and relationships. And so if you have accountability and expectations without the relationships, then you're a dictator. If you have accountability and relationships without the expectations, then people get frustrated. And if you have the expectations and relationship but no accountability, you get walked all over. And so you want to make sure that you have all 3 of those in place when you come in.
Man, where did you learn that?
I know.
Really good.
I know. I shared that with somebody and they're like, wait, can you say that again? And I felt like so smart. And I was like, wait, I was like, but I need to be honest where I got this from. And I know you got it from somebody else too, I'm sure. But we want to make sure that we have all 3 in place with our leaders, because we want our leaders to have that expectations. Like, this is what we're after, right? To have that accountability of like, hey, this is why this is so important.
Yep.
And then to have that relationship to where they know that, hey, I'm not just a means to an end. And so when you come in with that, both adult leaders and student leaders, that is a huge way to say, okay, look, I'm going to empower. And so Craig Groeschel says, when you delegate tasks, you create followers. When you delegate authority, you create leaders. And so it's that idea of like, hey, look, if we're going to go where I think God can take this, where I know God can take this, it can't be built on me.
Yeah.
And we've been talking about this a lot, but like we want our influence to last longer than our lives. We, our impact on people is going to outlast any program that we ever run. And so we want to multiply with leaders. And so a couple key things that we can do practically is make sure you have a clear leader's handbook, or at least written expectations for youth leaders. Like
If only there was like a template that they could
yeah,
use
if you
that we
check out
created
the
before.
Youth Ministry Mastermind, Keith and I both
Shameless
have
plug.
our guidebooks in there. Now, I will admit, like I wrote ours, but I'm just like, I'll just tell you, like, you know what I mean? Like we have such like just a different, it's even funny to see how our churches approach that so differently. But it's good to have, because then they can go back to
They
it
can refer-
and
yeah,
to go back to it.
reference back, yeah.
And so make sure you have a clear leader's handbook. If you're coming in, this is one of the first things you're going to do, because chances are one of two things: either it's non-existent if you're creating a youth ministry from scratch, or two, you're going to look at the old person who did it, and chances are they're going to be like us, where we look back and we're like, okay, we just wrote both of ours because we wanted it to be a template for youth leaders. But oftentimes you're going to come in and you're going to be like, this was
Dust
15
off of
years
it.
ago,
Yeah.
And so you want to make sure that you have that. And then also too, so crucial, sit down and identify the type of leader you're looking for in youth ministry. And then don't say yes to anybody. Like, I want to be careful I say this, but like, protect that at all costs.
Yeah.
People are going to, especially when you're new, people are going to be like, oh, I'm willing to help. And you're, naivete, you're like, yeah, I need all the help I can get. And the reality is like, you can do a lot of damage by bringing on somebody who is actually going to make your job harder, even under the pretense of that they're going to help.
Been there.
Yeah.
I saw some yellow flags going in, and it was like, no, we just need someone. And they ended up.
It's so much
It
more
was
time.
it's so much harder to fire a volunteer.
Yeah,
to
than
just
to say
not.
no.
Yeah, to say no.
And a lot of times too, so I know we're going to get to step 5, so maybe just 1 minute or two. Your best, somebody comes on board and there's a leader that they already know. They're like, this person isn't in it for the right piece, or this just isn't going to be a fit. What's your like 1 to 2 minute like best advice for that person who's coming
So
on?
you're saying like if someone comes on and one of your current leaders knows that person?
No. So like, okay, so we're talking to new youth pastors, leaders. They're coming on when there's a volunteer already in place from the previous youth pastor or something, and they already
So they're
realize like,
inheriting
Yes.
a potentially bad volunteer.
yes. What's your 1 minute advice to
Yeah.
them?
So developmental plan.
Okay.
Just say, hey, I'm working on some of these things. Like these are some things that I would love for you to improve on, like based on our new like model of ministry, like in working with me. And like I would love to see, you develop in these areas, like, and so like connected back to like, if it's like blatant sin, like
Yeah.
it's like they're living a, ungodly lifestyle, then like, that's a no brainer. Like just say like, hey, this is not a place for you to be serving while you're, involved with that.
Yeah.
Let's like take a step back, make sure that you're healing, and always approach it like you would, like you're shepherding them, like you're actually helping them to become more like Jesus. If it's like sinful, but if it's just like you can't quite put your finger on, like like they're just a like a domineering leader, but it's not like in the sinful
Yeah.
then you say like, hey, I've noticed some things, like some patterns or like some things that it's harder for me to really lead effectively in this role. Is that something that you'd be willing to work on in this time frame? And if not, like maybe we should, part ways.
Very good. So
That's how I'd approach it.
yeah, so far we talked about start in prayer, study the culture, rely on influence, not authority, multiply with leaders, and then we get to clarify your strategy. So
Strategy.
we've talked about gospel urgency, gospel fluency, gospel philosophy. These are all words that we use if you're new to the Beyond the Youth podcast. And gospel strategy is really where all these practical things come
Yeah.
in, where we can
Yeah.
really put them into place.
And just real quick, just to define this, so gospel urgency is like creating an urgency for sharing the gospel.
Yep.
Like to say like, hey, what we're doing is matter and it's timely.
Yep.
Like we have a narrowing window of opportunity to reach students before they turn 18. Like
Yep.
it gets harder after they're 18.
Yep.
Okay, so that's urgency. And then gospel fluency is using common language to have conversations about the gospel. So like if someone sets you down and say, hey, what is the gospel? Could you answer that? Could students in your ministry, if we cherry picked a student from your ministry, could they answer that?
Yeah.
And you'd be proud of that answer. Like they might be able to answer that, but it'd be like, whoa, hold on. Like,
He's new.
He's new. He hasn't been coming here for long. And so with that, comes gospel philosophy, which we talked about the 7 gospel advancing ministry values, which prayer, which we mentioned before, is part of that. Bold vision, leaders modeling, relational evangelism, programs reflecting it. What am I missing? They go through
I wasn't tracking.
yeah,
it,
okay.
but,
Anyways, there's a couple more in there.
yeah.
But anyways, those philosophy of ministry is like crucial, but those aren't like the practical things that are like, okay, well, how do I like, should I have my program on Wednesday or Sunday, or
Yeah.
what does that mean? And so the strategy are best practices.
Yeah.
Those things are constantly shifting based on effectiveness.
Yep.
So what worked for us back in 2006, 2007, 2008 does not work today in 2025.
Yeah.
And so so when it comes to that, like if you build your ministry on the strategy alone, like on the programs, then yeah, when you make a switch, everybody's upset.
Yeah.
But if you say, hey, this is who we are, this is what we value, this is what we're talking about. By the way, the programs and stuff, like they'll shift based on what's effective. So if you try something for 6 months and it's not working at all, then that's not a good
Yeah.
strategy to continue with.
Yeah.
And then, so I would say like a lot of times, I noticed we talk about a lot of youth leaders that have built a whole youth ministry on just strategy, like
Yeah.
just on programs or like the right, like what they think is like the best, or they approach it like that youth leader asked me, hey, what's the best program that's going to reach everybody? It's like, yeah, you're barking up the wrong tree. Like,
Yeah.
make sure that you're not building a whole ministry on just your, because that's going to shift based on what you're.
Yeah, and so you want to be clear with it, but it's that what you talked about, that philosophy doesn't change, but the strategy does. And so you need to be, as you're coming in, to say, what is the best strategy right now? These are the things that are never going to change, right? We're going to build it on prayer. We're going to build it on relationships. We're going to build it on influence and things like that. But then how do we actually practically do that? And we need to remember that disciples are handmade, not mass produced. And so when we step into this, God has given you that unique, oversight over that ministry to say, I don't know how everybody else is doing it, but this is what I think God wants us to do here.
Yeah.
And so we want to be clear in that, because as Greg Stier says, when it comes to presenting the gospel, but it applies here, is clarity is charity. So when we can be as clear as possible, this is what it's all about, then people can really get on board. And Rick Warren said the secret of effectiveness is to know what really counts, then do what really counts, and not worry about all the rest.
Yeah. Well, and I heard recently, because we were really affected by all the Doge stuff, like recently, like with the government, like in the Doge Department of Government Efficiency.
Yeah.
And I remember I think even like Elon Musk had said something like this, or maybe I heard it from somewhere else, but they were basically saying like efficiency is bad if you're doing the wrong thing.
You can be very efficient at gaining weight.
Yeah, so let's make sure that we're not just efficient, but that we're effective. I think that is the shift that we need to make. We can't. So I think we do approach this like, okay, this program is taking this much time in our week. So how can we be more efficient to actually pull this off?
Yeah.
When we shouldn't be doing that in the first place. Like, do you see what I'm saying? Like, so like there is a difference in effectiveness or efficiency. So are the outcomes that you're hoping for, praying towards, dreaming about, like, knowing that the Lord can do through your ministry, are the outcomes being supported by the things that you're doing on a weekly basis?
Yeah. And so
that's effectiveness.
Yeah. And so we can give some best practices on strategy, but we can never say this is the strategy that works.
Yeah.
Now, what we can say, and this is where we will give you a practical tip, is we can say this philosophy works. And the 7 values of a gospel advancing ministry have been proven scientifically, anecdotally, from a data point,
We have a lot of data.
to say, look, these actually work. And so if you're new to youth ministry, probably like even start here, go grab a copy of Gospelized by Greg Stier. They give it away on the Dare to Share website, so like we don't get any like referral fee. Like we're getting nothing out of this other than like this is just a great comprehensive book. Everybody, we often see in all the Facebook groups, it's like, what's the best book? And I'm always like trying to like type first and be like Gospelized by Greg Stier before everybody else puts everything in. And there's other great books, but really do that. Really start there. The other thing is in episode 100, we walked through the 7 values of a gospel advancing ministry, which is broken down in Gospelized, but then we also talked about why it's so important. And so if you're just getting started, a practical tip is actually to, as this video finishes, to go back and find this episode 100, the 7 values of a gospel advancing ministry. Do they actually work? And it's popping up right here on your screen right now. We want you to go ahead and go watch that, because that is a great opportunity for you to build on the right things from the very beginning, to take those 7 values, implement them in your ministry, and then figure out between you and God what is the strategy that He has for you to implement all of this. So we appreciate you guys checking this episode out, but we really love for you to go ahead, check out the 7 values of a gospel advancing ministry and why they actually work. Check that episode out, and then we'll see y'all on the next one.